detox and retox. And the fundamental word here is tox. And tox stands for toxin. We know what toxins are. Toxins are poisons. Now, when a toxin gets into you, you are said to be intoxicated. For some reason, we only think that means alcohol, but you can be intoxicated with all sorts of anything toxic. When it gets into your blood, it's called toxemia. You've all heard of the word anemia. Anemia. Some people have anemia. That means their blood is low. Women get that if they have heavy periods. They can be anemic. If you've got some sort of ulcer and you're bleeding inside, you could be anemic. If you have a colon cancer, you could be bleeding. So the loss of blood is anemia, or your body's not making enough blood. Anyway, so the thing here is emia. Emia refers to something in the blood. So when you get toxins into your body, whether you've eaten them, drank them, breathed them in, they came through your skin, however they get into you, they finally get to the blood, and then they circulate and they get into the tissues. So I take in a toxin, it's in the blood, I have toxemia, and then it gets deposited into my tissues, into my organs, and that is called I'm intoxicated or intoxication. Okay? So the word here is tox. Now, so what would be a good thing to do right now would be, let's define what we're talking about. Everything, the whole universe, the whole physical universe exists in polarities. It exists in opposites. For example, we don't know what up means if there is no down. We don't know what a front is if we don't know what the back is. So if there's no up, there's no down. So they define each other. Front defines back, back defines front. So in order for us to really understand what a toxin is, we really have to understand what is the opposite of a toxin. Something that is not a toxin would mean that you take it into your body somehow, and it is incorporated into your flesh and blood. It becomes part of your system. So food does that. Real food. Real food gets incorporated into your flesh and your blood. Okay? And you breathe air. You got oxygen, you've got nitrogen, you've got lots of other smaller gases. And the oxygen gets incorporated into your cells, into your blood. So the oxygen. So anything, let's define anything that comes into your body that your body can use as food or a nutrient. And I think nutrient is a better word than food, because food we think of eating. But a nutrient is I can breathe in oxygen, so oxygen is a nutrient. I can drink water, so water is a nutrient, because my body is going to use the water. It's going to become part of me. So that's nutrients. And the nutrients include, of course, food. So that which can be taken in and incorporated into my body is a nutrient, and that which comes into my body that cannot be incorporated, that I have to get rid of, we'll call a toxin. Okay? So, that process is going on in us all the time. There's no perfect nutrient. Every nutrient there's a part of it that is not usable. For example, if I eat an apple, I eat an organic apple, beautiful, perfect, organic apple. There is part of it that I cannot use and will come out. So there's no perfect food. There's nothing you take in and 100% of it becomes you. Except, actually, oxygen and water. And the reason is very complicated, but actually these things get used and they no longer exist as oxygen or water. They get used and they become other things. Okay. But there's really no perfect food, and that's what we have to understand, because people will ask, what is the perfect human diet? There is no perfect human diet. Okay, and so therefore, an apple, if I eat an apple, let's say I can use 90% of it, and 10% I can't use. And let's say I eat, the same with broccoli. I eat some broccoli. 90% I can use, 10% I cannot use. My body, it has to get rid of it, otherwise, in a couple years I'll be too big to walk. So, now let's say I put the broccoli into a pot of boiling water and I boil it. And now it's soft. Now, how much of it can I use? Maybe about 20%. The rest is not usable anymore. So I've changed it. If I fried it, maybe 0.01% I could use, and the rest I couldn't. Okay, so that I just wanted to put that in, because that'll come up later. So, I therefore, long ago, came up with the conclusion that instead of saying this food is better than this food, and this is better than this, I look at food as being, this is worse than. Because none of it can be used 100%. This is less bad for you, less harmful for you. But what does that imply? That implies that probably the best diet would be not eating. And there's actually some evidence that that is true. There is some evidence and that has to do with the structure of our blood cells, our red blood cells. They have the same structure as chlorophyll in the plants. And they're used to grab energy of light and transmute it into biological energy. And as you know, in nature, God didn't and doesn't make anything that does not have value, does not have utility, that is not useful. Anything that exists for a purpose and has a reason and has utility. So there's no reason that we would have red blood cells that are, in chemistry we call it photoreceptive cells. In other words, they're designed to absorb light. Why would we have that in our blood? No one has ever answered that question because there's no obvious reason. Okay? But it exists, and things don't exist unless they're necessary. Because the universe, whether we like it or not, everything here is necessary. Right? Now, what do? We walk around asking, what's better? Is this better or that better? And if I asked you what's better, day or night, what would you tell me? What's better, up or down? What's better, men or women? The answer to all of them is that they're both necessary. And you remove the morality. There's no better. It's not good. This is good and that's bad. It's all necessary. Why is it necessary? Because it is. Why is it? Because God wants it to be. I don't know. If you have another explanation for why things are, I would love to hear it. Interestingly enough, along those lines, our bodies were designed to eliminate toxins. So what does that tell you about toxins? They must be necessary. Otherwise we wouldn't have a mechanism already in existence to get rid of them, or to process them, or to change them. It's just like when human beings first started, I think way back when, maybe a couple thousand years ago, if somebody was in a lot of pain and they were dying, they would give them the milk of the poppy. Today we have refined that into morphine, heroin, things like that. The milk of the poppy. Now people think, oh, but heroin addiction is bad. It ruins lives. People are killing people, blah, 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 so it's bad. No, it's not bad. Why do I know it's not bad? Who made it? It has a purpose. Interestingly enough, also, is that why, when we take in opium, heroin, why does it have an effect on us? A pleasurable effect. It takes away pain, makes you mellow. Why does it do that? Because in our body we have receptors for opiate derivatives. Why would we have receptors on our cells for opium? Because our body makes opium. And in biochemistry and in physiology, we call that endorphins. Endorphin, the word endorphin, endorphin stands for endogenous, produced inside, from inside. Morphine. Endo or orphan. I guess you could take it this way. Orphan, endogenously produced morphine. They're called endorphins, are the chemicals that our body makes. And we have what are called opiate receptors all over our body. So when we take in opiate, it immediately goes to the receptors. It turns out we also have cannabinoid receptors, which is the chemical produced by ganja, marijuana, hashish. Our body produces what are called endocannabinoids. And then we have receptors in our brain, we have receptors in our gut, we have receptors all over our body. So these are called endocannabinoids. Okay, so it turns out that everything that has an effect on us, which is a profound effect, is we have receptors. Now, if we don't have receptors, what happens? We get sick, or our body, we develop itching, and we get really sick, and we die. So then it gets really, really difficult to define what is a toxin. It's really hard to define what is a toxin. It's like a pen. Is the pen bad? No. But if I stab somebody in the eye, is the pen bad? No, it's me. The cigarette bad? No, it's me. So it comes down to our use of things, the human involvement, the human relationship with things. Is alcohol bad? No. In fact, in small amounts, it's actually good. It relieves tension. It's good. A glass of wine at the end of the day is okay. Can be okay. Now, why are we doing that? Why are we taking things in and getting rid of other things? Now we have, and as I said, we have mechanisms built into our body as part of our normal processing that eliminate toxins. One that we're all very aware of, although we don't talk about it in public, because you don't talk about these things in public if you're civilized, and that is our bowels. We don't talk about bowels. You don't meet someone for the first time and say, how you doing? Yeah, where are you from? By the way, how many bowel movements do you have a day? We just don't do that. Although we should, if you really want to get, you only have 2 a day. That's too bad. How big? I get away with it because I'm a doctor, right? So I get to ask everybody about their bowel movements. But you can't just walk up to someone and say that. You look like you need a bowel movement. But anyway, so we have this built into our system. It's the bowels. Then we have our kidneys and our bladder, and our urine comes out. Okay? And then we have our lymphatic vessels, and we have our sweat, we have our skin, right? And our lungs. Our lungs breathe out toxins, the things we don't need. So we have all these organs and organ systems that are designed to eliminate toxins. Why? Because toxins are necessary. Because the universe does not exist as the phenomenal physical universe does not exist in little pieces of perfection. It exists in polar opposites. Polar opposites that define each other. And life is all about the exchange of energy. And if something is alive, that means it's containing energy. That means it's bringing in energy and it's eliminating energy. And it's able to maintain that energy for a period of time. Humans can maintain their form for about 100 years. It's a good number. Yeah, about 100 years we can maintain, and then we no longer can take in and eliminate energy. And then there are other organisms that cannot do it as often, like a bacteria. They have about an hour, and then they're replaced by the new generation. But there are certain things that we all agree upon. I'll give you one really simple example. I think all of us, in fact, all humans, well, maybe 99.9999% of the humans would conclude that feces is not food. But what is feces to a fly? Heaven. How about to bacteria and fungus? Whoa. We're talking about a banquet, right? So, when someone says to me, well, what is the proper diet? And I say, well, it depends on what species you're talking about. An interesting note is that no creature on this earth, or in this earth, or flying above this earth, ever asks that question. Except us. Why is it that a dog doesn't have to ask its mother, is this okay to eat? Do you think horses have seminars and debates about what is the right thing for a horse to eat? Do you think they do blood tests on each other and say, look, you're a type R. You've got type R blood. You can't eat that hay. Anyway, the animals don't, and the animals, including, and the plants, and there's no creature on the planet that needs to ask what to eat or when to go to sleep or how to interact. We don't know how to do any of that. We don't know what to eat. We don't know when to go to sleep. We don't know how to interact with each other. We can't agree on anything. And the reason is because we are cut off from God, and the other animals are not. They're connected to God. They don't have to pray, and they don't have to meditate. They're in continual communion with God. There's no thing in the way called the mind, called the ego, is not in the way. And they're completely under the auspices of the divinity. And do you know what are the strands of that web that connects all the creatures to God? The strands of that web that connects all the creatures to God is called instinct, which we don't have anymore. Why don't we have instinct anymore? How is it that a flock of birds, same time turns? How?
Many scientists
Did they rehearse it?
What's that kind of birds?
Yeah. How did the birds do it?
They don't understand.
How come the butterfly knows what flower to go to? Did they go to school? Is there a special school for animals? They know how to do. How does a spider know how to design a web? Look at this web, it's fantastic. Right? We got to go to school to figure out how to make a table. Hammer. Yeah, what? You put this in here? You know. We're cut off from God by instinct. And how does that happen? It happens about your... I'm trying to think with my kids. It happens within the second, I don't know, month? How long do we give our kids before we start telling them what are the three things we love to tell our children?
Don't do that.
How many parents in here? Okay. Did you ever tell your children no? Did you ever tell your children stop? Don't. No, stop, don't. No, stop, don't. No, don't. Now your child is 1 year old. Are they bad? No. Are they doing evil things? No. What are they doing? They're acting out of what? Instinct. And what do we tell them about the instinct? It's bad. Don't. No. Right, don't put you there. Yeah, don't sit like that. Sit like this. Right? So this is what we do. So by the time the children are 4 years old, is this okay? Is this okay? So what do our children do? What are we teaching them to do? What are we really great at teaching our children to do? To lie. Who touched? Not me. Wait a minute, there was a piece of candy here. Chocolate on the thing. It wasn't me, Mommy. We require our children to lie, and we reward it. The best liars win. And they wind up in the White House. Then we teach them to lie, to not be truthful. Right? Do you ever see kids walking around and their parents are there and then they walk there and go, what did you really do with it? Oh, just that. Because the fundamental things that parents do to children is they tell children from the very beginning that they're not good enough and that the parents are going to fix them. You're not good enough, we're going to fix you. And pretty soon children no longer have access to their instinct because they know if they function instinctively, they're going to get in trouble, they're going to get hit, they're going to get punished. So they no longer function by instinct. They function by what? By our rules. And what are our rules called? Culture. So if you grow up in Qatar, you think, well, we have the best culture. If you grow up in Thailand, we have the best culture. You grow up in South Africa, we have the best culture. Every culture, we have the best culture. But let me tell you, All cultures are an abomination before God because they deny instinct. And instinct is a gift. It's the divine gift of wisdom to know how to be and to respond and how to eat and how to live and how to live out your days on the earth. And we beat it out of our children. And if we're not successful, if our children don't walk out at the age of 18 as very enculturated citizens, we have two systems that will fix that. One's called the penal system, the other's called the psychiatric system. So you're either going to go to jail or go in a psychiatric hospital. Or nowadays, we don't have to worry about that. Drugs. Right? We've got drugs for everything. You know, and when I was in New York, there was a pediatrician who diagnosed a 6-month-old infant with depression. 6-month-old, and put them on an antidepressant. And I was in New York, so I thought, that's normal. This is normal. I'm in New York. I'm in New York. And you know what else they have in New York? They've got dog psychiatrists. People in the park, they have their poodle. The poodle's seeing a dog psychiatrist. It's normal. Anyway, so I just want you to get the whole picture. So the whole picture is this, is that we do this to ourselves. We carry it on, and the sins of the fathers are visited upon the sons. This is an old expression, and it means exactly what it says. Right? And how do we teach our children? Do we teach our children by books? By talking? Is that how we teach? No, we teach our children by who we are. Our children turn out to become us. And they're not busy listening to our words, because children, if you have any children, they don't want to listen to you. Right? They become you. They incorporate your mannerisms. They incorporate your feelings. Behaviors, yeah. So this is how we teach. Anyway, so somebody's got, I can't get him to stop eating fried chicken and French fries. He won't eat anything else. He only eats fried chicken and French fries. Wonder where he got that idea. How did he ever think of fried chicken? Here you had him in the garden with tomatoes, and he said, I want a fried chicken. How did that happen? You gave him the fried chicken, you gave him the French fries, and now you don't want him to eat the fried chicken and the French fries? You put him in this culture, you put him to school, you take him to McDonald's. One of the things I like my goals to do is to fracture, break, destroy, eliminate everything that you think you know. I want you to realize that what you think you know is just made up. It's not real. It's illusion. In India, they call it Maya. All of this is Maya. It's the illusion. Let me ask you something. There's an expression in India. They say, if a pickpocket, you know what a pickpocket is? Somebody who takes pickpocket, right? If a pickpocket meets a saint, all he sees are his pockets. Here's a saint, but he only saw the pockets. Motivation affects perception. If you're hungry and you walk down the street, what will you see? Will you see temples? You'll see food. You'll see restaurants. Motivation affects perception. Okay. Anyway. So, back to life. Life being the ability to exchange energy for a period of time. That energy comes in the form of anything. We discovered that anything is energy. Everything is energy. Right? Because when we look at an atom, which is supposed to be the basic foundation of matter, and we look at an atom and we find the center, which we call the nucleus, and we open it up, what do we find? Atomic energy. Energy. So the very heart of matter is energy. And the thing that's keeping these electrons and things spinning is energy. It's all energy. Okay, so it's the exchange of energy. So a large part, now, and we also discussed the fact that nothing is here because it's good or bad, and nothing is here that shouldn't be here. And how do we know that? Because it's here. If something is here, if something exists, what do we know? We know that God wanted it to exist, wants it to exist. If He didn't want it to exist, it wouldn't exist. Because you know, Bangladesh don't exist, right? Have you ever seen a Bangladesh? Did you ever see a Bangladesh? No one has. How about a Lirgadesh? You've ever seen one of those? The reason you didn't see it because they don't exist. So what can we conclude? They're not necessary. Except they were necessary for this conversation, so they're... Anyway, so they don't exist. So that which is necessary, and that which is not is unnecessary. Energy is one of the reasons people come to detox centers is because they're tired, they're fatigued, they're running out of energy. That's one of the main reasons. The two main reasons we see here are overweight or no energy. I mean, there's really no other reasons why people come. And when someone says, well, I just want to clean up my life, what they're saying is, I don't have any energy. I don't have the energy I used to have. Right? And what do we see? What's the difference between a child and an old man? Energy. I mean, other than the way they look, energy. The child is running and the old man's, oh. What's the difference between a sick man and a healthy man? Or I mean, a sick woman and a healthy woman? Energy. When you're sick, you just don't have any energy. I'm going to go to sleep. I don't feel good. So sickness versus health is energy. Youth versus age is energy. And then the final one, what's the difference between a live body and a dead body? Energy. Now, how do you measure energy? Now, we all know there's something different. Also, there's something that is not in that live body anymore, and that's called the breath of God. And when the breath of God is gone, the body turns to dirt, to sand, to soil. But it is that breath of God that allows the whole thing to happen. But we're going to leave that out of the equation for now and just look at it on a biophysical level. On a biophysical level, if we hold a voltmeter to the foot of a person who's alive, it's going to have a charge. If we hold a voltmeter to the foot of a corpse, it will hold no charge. And I know this because in my office in the US, I have a potato clock. And it's a potato that you plug in. You got a clock and it's got two electrodes. You plug it into the potato and the clock works. If I boiled and baked the potato, would the clock work? So let's make sure we boil and bake everything quickly. Forget tomatoes, let's eat tomato soup. Forget apples, let's eat applesauce. Good idea? It turns out that the energy that we need is measured, is actually very, very distinct. It is 35 millivolts in every cell. Every cell needs 35 millivolts to function. And when your cells get down to 20 millivolts, I can't go to work today. I don't feel very good. And when you get down to 10 millivolts, you can't get out of bed. Now, if you hurt yourself and you need to heal, you need to go up to 50 millivolts. And if you have a chronic condition like cancer or arthritis or gastritis or depression, anything chronic, you need to get up to 70 millivolts. Now these charges can be measured. You can measure it on your tooth. You can get a microvoltmeter and put it on one tooth and down here like that, and you'll measure 35 millivolts. Unless you have mercury. If you have a mercury filling, it's going to go psh. Or if you have a root canal, it's going to go. We're talking about the cell. Now the cell has a double membrane around it, and this membrane functions as, in the world of electricity, a capacitor. Capacitor is something that's able to hold a charge. So the capacitor is made by these two layers of fat that are on this side water soluble, this side water soluble. In the middle, they're lipid soluble. And that defines a capacitor. Two conductors separated by an insulator is a capacitor, and that's what it is. So our cell membrane, in addition to doing everything else, having receptors for opium, having receptors for cannabinoids, having receptors for estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, growth hormone, having receptors for this stuff, for glucose, for insulin, having receptors and being able to communicate and relate with the entire environment around the cell, in addition to having all of these receptors and pores, it also functions as a capacitor to maintain charge. So would you think that that part of our body should be healthy? What's it made up of? Fats. Mostly fats, which we call lipids, about 50%. And then the rest is made up of some protein and made up of some carbohydrates. And they're all connected. But anyway, the main part is fats. And so the fats, now, keep this in mind. Every second you lose about 2 to 3 million cells, and every second you make 2 to 3 million cells. Okay, so that means your body is in a continual state of dynamic change. It's dynamic. Your body is not a static. It looks like it's just sitting there, but in 6 weeks you have all new skin. Every 3 days you're going to have a new lining to your mouth, to your lips, all the way down to your colon. New lining replaced. Okay, so our body is in a continual state of dynamic change. Now, every cell in the body is made up of lipids. We have 100 trillion cells, and we're replacing 2 to 3 million per second. So do we need fats? A little bit? A lot. What kind of fats? Fried chicken? How about bacon? How about beef, fat beef, fried hamburgers, pepperoni? How about, what's that stuff?
Sausage.
The stuff you eat in Turkey and Greece and...
Kebab.
Yeah, with the lamb, is it lamb and greasy?
Kebab.
Yeah, that's what we need. That you want to make your cells out of lamb grease? You think that's going to give you, you're going to be strong? What kind of oils and fats should our body need? Well, where do all oils and fats originate? In plants, in the form of seeds and nuts. All oils originate in that. You have to get the oil from that somehow and then change it, modify it to your own fats. Okay, so we should be eating a lot of seeds and nuts, and we can make nut butters and seed butters and things like that, or we can be getting this into us, coconut oil, avocados. All of these things are very good fats that are necessary to make healthy membranes so that we can hold a charge. So if you're sick and you need to get up to minus 50 millivolts and you don't have healthy fats around your cells, you can't get the charge. And it's going to take you a long time to get well. And you're going to say, you know, he's a very sickly guy. He gets sick often and it takes him a long time. Or, man, you've had that cold now for 2 months. What's wrong with you? Fats, oils. That's one thing. And if you have cancer, you have to get up to here and stay there long enough to heal it. And just to give you some more I want you to have a picture of this. Every energy is carried inside of cell in biology in the form of a molecule called adenosine triphosphate. This carries energy. This is how we have energy. Every cell has about 1 billion ATPs all the time, because it has to carry on thousands of reactions every second. How many reactions? Per second in the body. That's how many chemical reactions are going on inside the body every second, which requires energy. So we need to have a good capacitor. We need to be able to store the energy. We need to make the energy, and we need to be able to maintain about 1 billion. So how is energy made? Well, basically glucose plus oxygen produces 38 ATP energy, 1 molecule of glucose. Fat actually makes more. You can break it down into more. But anyway, that makes ATP. So, what does that mean? If I look around the earth and I look at people, what do I notice? You know, I traveled around. I went to India, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Greece, Italy, and then other places. But I went around there in 1971. How many fat people did I see? I couldn't even remember seeing a fat person. Now, if I were to go to those countries, would I see any fat people? The real question is, would I see any not fat people? So what have we concluded? What have we concluded as a race? We've concluded that in order to maintain 1 billion ATP, what do we have to do? We look at this equation up here. What is our conclusion? If we want to maintain energy, we have to eat all the time. Eat every second. When you go to sleep, set the alarm for 2 hours and get up and eat. Eat. Don't stop eating. You woke up, eat. Okay? You took a shower, eat. That's what I conclude. How did everybody get fat? Because we decided that we're not eating enough. Because God was stupid. God said, you know, if I don't keep the glucose going in, we're going to run out of energy and die, right? So you got to understand that God actually thought of everything. Not some of it, but everything. So it turns out that when we don't eat is when we make the most energy. And if we don't eat, we won't have any energy. We won't be able to get off the couch. What happens when you go to sleep and you're not eating? Are you dying? How come you went to bed tired and you woke up with energy? What happened there? How did that happen? When we stop eating and there's no more glucose going in the cell has to maintain the energy. So how does it maintain the energy? It turns on a system called the lysosomal system. And the lysosomes take all of the old mitochondria and all of the old ribosomes and all of the old worn out organelles and gobbles them up and recycles them. Okay? Now, the mitochondria, which are the little organelles inside of the cell that do glucose plus oxygen to make ATP. That's where that happens. They get worn out and tired, which is why at the end of the day, you're tired. So you go to sleep. What happens? All of those old ones are recycled. And what does that do? That stimulates them to grow, to proliferate. Now, mitochondria have their own DNA, so by morning you're full of new mitochondria and you jump out of bed and you all that. So if you did not stop eating, if you did not go to sleep, you would not have cleaned up inside of your cell. So your cell would be dirty, you'd have really old. That's why if we go 2 or 3 days without sleeping, we're useless. So one of the most important things about going to sleep is that we finally stop eating. Although there are people who get up to go to the bathroom and go to the refrigerator and go back to bed, and they blew it. Now that night is so anyway, so again, what I wanted to tell you was that the body has a built-in system to cleanse, to detox. So we have most of the organs of function have to be with getting rid of, eliminating toxins. And inside of our cells, we have intracellular mechanisms to eliminate toxins and to clean up. So when you say you're going to go to LifeCo and detox, that's not a true statement. You're going to go to LifeCo and do nothing so that your body can detox. You don't do it, it does it. It's a self-cleaning oven. You just turn the switch on, it cleans itself. This body will clean itself if you just stop feeding it. And if you don't stop feeding it, it cannot clean itself. And you will accumulate toxins quickly. And you will develop these things called sickness, aging, and death. Early. Prematurely. We're supposed to be living to 120. Now the original design, I want to remind you all, the original design had us living to 912 years. You remember the original design? Right? You look in the holy books, what do they tell you? This guy lived 987 years, this guy lived... Why? Well, because they were eating the food that we were designed to eat. What were they eating? Well, go to the first book we call it Genesis, you have other names. In Israel, they call it the 5 books, they call it the Pentateuch, right? By Moses. You go to the first book, chapter 1, verse 29, and read it. When you get back to your room, read it. What does it say? I give you every fruit which has a seed, and every plant bearing seed that's on the whole face of the earth. For you it shall be meat, for you it shall be food. And it did not say steam for 20 minutes. It did not say, when microwaved, do not use metal. Those were not in the, I've read it a few times, I just don't remember seeing that part. Now, so when people were eating according to that diet, what happened? 900? 850? Okay. So then what happened? Remember the flood? The big flood, and the guy, what's his name? Noah? Oh yeah, Noah. So what did he start doing? What did he? He got permission to feed the people what? Dead animals. So they started eating dead animals, and what happened? They died young. And within 5 generations, they were living, the life was 120 years. And then he gave rules. There's rules. There's halal, there's kosher. But all these are rules for plan B. This is not plan A. Plan A was eat the plants and don't cook them because I made them perfect. Guess what? I made tomatoes, not tomato soup, and I didn't make a mistake. You're making a mistake by turning on the oven. God, you think God messed up? Where's the lycopene? How come there are no lycopene trees? How come there's no vitamin C trees? Oh, I guess we don't need just one single nutrient. I guess if we eat the tomato, it's got lycopene, vitamin C, vitamin A, carotenes, fiber. And the seeds have amygdalin, etc., 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 etc. And actually, food is medicine. Hippocrates, let thy food be thy medicine be thy food. This is it. This is it. There is no other medicine. How do we leave here and still continue to detox and not go back to our old habits? And actually, that's a very complicated subject, but actually comes down to something very simple. If you just follow some basic rules of living your life, you can do that. Number one and foremost is going to bed early. If you go to bed early and you wake up early, you will have had a very restorative sleep. All of your cells would have been restored and cleaned. You'll have energy. You'll feel really good. Okay, number one. Number two, when you get up in the morning, the first thing you do is pray. The second thing you do is read. And what do you read? You read scripture and you read books about health and healing. Truth. Not books about disease and all that madness, but truth. You read about nutrition. You read about these things. You read about these things. I've got a list of books. You need to understand nutrition. Why? Because you need to understand how to live. You need to learn how to appreciate this gift of life that we have and how to nurture it. Third thing you do, exercise. Exercise. Sweat, get your heart beating. Sweat, get your exercise, get your muscles going. Then, fourth thing you should do is take a shower.
Shower?
Yeah, but you shouldn't, or bath, or whatever, get clean. And then start your day. Now, when we're sleeping, we're not eating, and one of the words for not eating is called fasting. So when at some point in the day, so when you go to bed, you're starting your fast. Now, when are you going to break your fast?
12.
You don't have to break your fast when you get up, calling it breakfast. You can break your fast at noon. In fact, the longer you have between meals, the more you'll have the cleansing of those, like I told you before, inside your cells.
The weak and strong man.
Yeah. Check out, if you go online, just check out vegan strongman, 1 meal a day. Just put that in your vegan strongman, 1 meal a day. Anyway, pretty interesting. So, now, so you do that, and then let's say you decide you don't want to change your diet. You want to continue to eat kebab. Okay. Just eat between 12 or 1 and 4 or 5 and stop eating. And then, because you're going to go to bed at about 8 or 9. So you want to have 3 hours before going to bed where you didn't eat, so that you can get the best restful sleep. Your your body won't be busy trying to deal with the food. Your body will be cleaning house. So even if you don't change your diet, however, when you came to LifeCo, you learned a little bit about diet. You learned about making smoothies and making, and salads and stuff like that. So at least the 50% of that diet that you're only eating between 12 and 4 is vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds, healthy things. And you just save a little bit of the slimy, dirty corpse, greasy, fried corpse for at the end. So eat the salad first and then dine on the corpse at the end. And if you do that, you'll find that you actually will be really healthy. The problem with when you go back is that you're going to go back to eating early, you're going to be eating too much food, and you're going to be eating it all day. So if you can break the habit of eating between 12, just eat 12 to 4, go to bed early, wake up early, pray or meditate, read, exercise. Your life will be different. You'll keep what you got here. And then you come here 4 times a year, or come here once a year, and at the other 3 times a year, you can do a detox at home. But you need to get away from your madness for at least 1 time a year and come to a place like LifeCo. It doesn't have to be LifeCo, but it's a good choice. That's it. Thank you.